Hi, Lily Quinn here. I want to demonstrate in this tutorial how to create a V neckline with a band like this, where you have the band also in the form of a V. You usually find this in knit t-shirts or knit blouses, and you go ahead and you create the band that you're going to use. I'm going to use this one, but I'm going to show you how this is created. It's going to sit on this neckline. Okay, now the emphasis for this tutorial is on the V neckline, not the whole neckline. The back neckline would be, of course, a round, but this is just a V. So I'm focusing on this part. So I went ahead and I created a stay stitch on the V. If you don't know what stay stitch is, it's a small short stitches to reinforce the area that you're going to be stitching on, or where you have the most stress. And then I snipped into it. So this is a very delicate stitching. It has to be really close to where you're going to turn, where the sharpness of the V is. Otherwise, without this snip, you're going to have a curve more so. Okay, so this is how it is created. This is a band. This is just a straight piece of fabric. If you're working with knit or stretch fabric, it will be best to use the stretchy part of the fabric and also, stretch as you go along. Also, you can use a bias binding, like cut the strip on the bias. That helps too, so that when you get to the rounded part in the back, you're able to maneuver and you don't have the straight grain acting up. Okay, so to create this, of course, I want my band to be this wide. It's pretty small. And this includes seam allowance of 1/4 inch. This is slightly bigger than this one. I mean, this one is slightly bigger than that. But this is how I'm going to create my V for either side of the neckline. So I fold it up like this. And we're going to stitch down, but I'm going to cut. Now, just a quick note, if, I'm going to be using this V, I have to make sure that it's matching the V that I have here, that I'm going to be stitching on, because I'm going to stitch further down, and then I'll snip into it as well. So this is okay. I'm just going to stitch 1/4 inch around it, and I guess I'm going to turn at this point. Just going to put a mark there where I'm going to be turning. All right, so here we go. Okay, we'll go ahead and just 1/4 inch. You can make it bigger and then trim. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay, so I come all the way down right into that, and I turn. You have to pivot and turn so that you can have a sharp V in the end. All right, so okay, and then I'm going to really cut into the V, right? Looks like a curve. Anyway, the next thing you would do is press. You open the seam allowance and press to flatten it. So tiny. All right, you press. So I'm finger pressing. You would usually use the iron to press it. Make sure you open it through. And this is why snipping is important. When you snip, it allows you to open flat on either side. Then you will let them hug each other like that. put them on top of each other, and your V is created. Okay, your V is created. So this is where I got to, and I'm going to show you in my. So once your V is created like this, you now maneuver and sew it into your neckline. Okay, so I'm now using this one. I already prepared this ahead of time, and I'm going to grab my V neckline that has been stitched already, and I want the line or the seam line here to match this part. Okay, the part that I snipped. So it's sitting on it, and I'm just going to use a pin to kind of hold it together while I turn to navigate my stitching. So turn it this way, and it's going to sit, okay, align perfectly on the edge. All right. Actually, I'm going to sew from the side that I can see. I want to make sure that snip V is sitting exactly in line with the seam line over there. So now I'm going to just turn and follow this seam, and I'll go in, just making sure that my needle is sitting properly. Okay, and then I grab both edges, and I'm stitching behind, slightly behind the stay stitch, so it doesn't show. And I'm done. Of course, if you're doing a whole neckline, including the back of the blouse, you would create a longer band. And so you would create a longer band and go like that. So then I'm turning on to the other side. In the whole process, making sure that I don't miss that seam line. It's very important. Let me take the pin out and make sure that seam line is coinciding with the snip, the actual sharp snip. Let me hold it down while I start the stitch. Okay, it's very, intricate, but let's go in. Let's come here. Excuse me. All right. Remember, I'm going behind the stay stitch, so I'm going to make sure I align them, and I make sure I'm stitching behind the stay stitch. You don't want it to show. Let me move my pin out of the way and maneuver to, usually we will walk it. All right. Okay, and I'm just going to reduce this one and shape that. Shape that. All right. So it's neatened here, and I turn here, and voila, it lays flat the way I want it. Okay, it sits inside the neckline perfectly. You will press and make sure that, Now, usually you would use, I'm using black so we can see against the beige, but you can use a color that matches your blouse or your fabric so that you can go in further. Now, if I insist, my black is showing, and I don't want that to show. So I would, of course, use a thread that matches this fabric color. Now, if you want to do the back, you could join this together to match the back, or you can create one that doesn't need you to seam, to have a seam in the back. You can do that as well, so that you would create this. Make sure you measure and have the band like a one piece that ends here. Now you have to be careful to have the length correct to match, otherwise it's going to kind of pucker. So I like to do it separate, do or rather I would say the emphasis is on the neck, V-neck. So I'm just dealing with the front V-neck. Okay, next time we'll do a round one. You see how it goes. Thank you for watching, and